Welcome in to the Moving in Norfolk podcast, where we give you your weekly market update on what's going on in Hampton Roads. Today is June 22nd, 2022, and we're going to jump right into it today. Did you know that the current state of the median mortgage payment in the United States right about this time, as of June 15th, it sits around $2,628. So that is an amazing stat to note, because you got to think about where we're at in interest rates compared to 2 years ago, where interest rates was about either half or less than what we're at from that 6.69 monthly mortgage payment right now in interest rates. So when you think about that, this is more than double of what we've seen in mortgage payments in the last 2 years when it comes to the median monthly income payment for our asking price of a home. Now, on that mortgage payment. But here's other things that I want you to know as we get into our market recap on what's happened in the last week or so since June 15th. But I want to just talk about some of these things to keep in mind. And most of this is reported by Redfin, especially the quote about the 2,628 median monthly mortgage payment on the median asking price is sitting about 6.69% mortgage rate. But the daily average 30-year fixed mortgage rate is at 6.9. Okay. That's down a half year high of 7.14 a month earlier in May. And now we're talking about the average 30-year fixed rate. Since that 0.6, that 6.69 may sit around 6.71 at the end of November, what we saw last year to now. This rate has been shrinking a bit here, but on average, it has stayed around the same level completely. Okay. The mortgage purchase applications that we've seen in the last week has increased by 2% at the week ending of June 16th, but seasonally adjusted, making it the straight second week that we've seen mortgage applications increase and more applications being actually applied for, but purchase applications are still down 32% from a year earlier. Now, we've seen Google searches for homes for sale is up 13% from a month earlier during the week ending June 17th, and down about 11% from a year earlier as well. We've also seen home touring activity across the United States since June 18th was up 14% from the start of the year, compared to a 4% decrease we saw the same time around the same period. Okay. So according to the home tour technology company Showing Time is that company where basically realtors who list homes typically want to get buyers or consumers or agents the opportunity to go tour a home without the inconvenience of having to call someone or pick the phone up by using the booking technology. And Showing Time is one of those booking technologies that does a lot of the reservations for showings being scheduled for the consumer to actually go view homes. They say that tours increased slowly during this time last year as mortgage rates shot up, but they're starting to see that trend started to come back into fruition again. Now, 32.9% of homes that went under contract had an accepted offer within the first 2 weeks on the market. This is down from 36% a year earlier. So there's about a 3% difference in how many homes went under contract within the first 3 weeks, or first 2 weeks, in the last couple months that we've seen here. Now, 36.63% of homes sold above their final list price. That's what we talk about, your list to sold price ratios. When we talk about list to sold price ratios, so one of the main things to understand is that if it's over 100%, that means that whatever you're asking for in the list price, typically the home is selling for more than that. And that's what we've seen since late last August, but it's still down about 53% year over year. Okay. So let's talk about what's really going on out here in the market in Hampton Roads. Those are the national stats. Okay. But realistically, I like to make sure that viewers and consumers and buyers and even sellers understand the market from a intricate perspective from where you actually sit at in the local market that you're in. In this case, we're talking about the Hampton Roads area. So we're talking about Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Newport News, Hampton, Chesapeake, Suffolk, and even Portsmouth, Virginia. Okay. So the 7 cities, the 757, call it what you want, but we want to talk about what's really going on in this marketplace. And before we get into what's really going on in the marketplace, what's even more important is just to understand what are we seeing happening around town right now. Well, if you live over in Norfolk, if you haven't seen my Instagram post that I actually posted recently about how the city of Norfolk is actually purchasing one of the major buildings in downtown Norfolk, the MacArthur Center, for $11 million. It's about 18 million total as a package, but $6 to $7 million of that is actually in fees. Things like this are going to happen to a lot more in commercial property. Now, why is commercial property important to note? Is because that's where a lot of influence comes from as well too, in the dynamics of the market. Now, if commercial property is going down in value and residential property is going up in value, where do you think that the investors are going to actually lay their head at? They're going to more start to focus on commercial property, right? Well, not so quick. We just understand that the prime rate on commercial property is now about 8.5%. Okay. And then you got to take into account that it depends on who's providing the loan. And the SBA is usually like the Small Business Administration is the actual company that's actually going to give probably the best premium for commercial property. Their commercial property rate right now is the prime rate plus 4%. So for someone to invest in a commercial property, they're right now looking at about a 12.5% interest rate. So if you bought during the pandemic, by putting this 20 to 25% down that's required for commercial property at the same time, you've seen opportunities scale away from you now. And that's important to note as we go into what we talk about when it comes to our market recap on the daily news here, right? For us, what I want to show you right now, I'm about to bring up my spreadsheet. We've made we tailored some changes to it. Kind of want to give you a little bit more intricate detail here, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to start with our cross property here. Let's see if we get this up the right way. Okay, good. So we're just going to blow this up so you can get good details here. All right. So we're going to get into what we've seen across the marketplace as a whole. Okay. So new listings are down 13% week over week. Last week we saw 849 new listings, and now we've seen this week 741 new listings. Okay. Now 60 of those have come back on the market in the last week as well. And we've seen price decreases of about 242 listings take price decreases in the last week across the 7 cities as well, with 37 price increases happening. And those homes primarily going under contract right now or in pending sales transactions. Now, pending sales down to 527, down 11% week over week. And we've seen sold listings increase by 4% up to 533 in the last week as well, too, from that 513 number. Now, rents on attached single family properties, they have seen a decrease by 16% as well, but they still had 175 properties rented this week as well. And expired transactions, we've seen only 16 across the marketplace, with 88 withdrawals and 4 fall throughs, with a total of 2,423 total transactions taking place in our marketplace this week on June 22nd. Now, I know you're saying, okay, Craig, those are great stats, right? We understand what you're saying, but what does that really mean for the buyer, or what does that really mean for the consumer? What that really means across the whole entire marketplace is what we continue to say, that it's going to continue to be a seller's market because there is not enough inventory coming into the marketplace to actually sell off demand, to give buyers a more opportunity to bid on a property that's not going to have multiple multiple offers coming in on a certain price point. That's what we're continuing to see across the marketplace. And when you see things like this happening, what continues to be the problem is that we're going to see that homes are not going to stay on the market long. Like just a stat at the beginning telling you that homes are receiving offers within the first 2 weeks of being on the market at a higher rate, about 36% now. You're going to continue to see that going forward because that's just not going to stop right now until builders are able to get control of bringing in more inventory to market and sellers are more willing to sell their home and bringing those homes to market as well. What we're seeing in Hampton Roads right now is that it takes a situation to change the scenario for a seller to put their home on the market. What do I mean by that? I mean, some type of family or life event had to happen for that home to more likely go on the market. Most sellers are willing to wait it out because their interest rate is so locked in and it's so much bigger. Think about this. The interest rate that the seller is paying right now, if they was to put their home on the market, is just not, it's so crazy to see those numbers, 3%, 2%. In certain people cases, some was even able to refinance down to 1.8%. So when you think about that payment that they're making, they're basically paying little to no interest on the home that they actually own. That it makes more sense for them to actually rent that property out, bring in cash flow for that property, and then move into another home that they want to purchase outright versus worrying about the selling of the home because they're just giving up a great interest rate. So increasingly, the Fed, when they actually talks about now increasing the mortgage rate, well, not increasing the Fed fund rate up probably about 2 more times for the rest of the year. What they're basically signaling is they're continuing to push that sellers are becoming impromptu landlords, that they didn't have the intent of purchasing homes during the pandemic like they did, and with the intent to become a landlord later. But what they have done is lock them into such great rates that they basically are, having to become people who did not want to be landlords in the first place, but now they're in that situation, and that's the type of situation that they're going to be in more likely for a while. So I think inventory is still going to be an issue here, and that's why it's going to take selective agents to actually be the ones in the marketplace getting you the best offers on the best homes in the market for you, and that's what we always aim to do. Now, when it comes to new listings across the board, right? What we want to talk about new listings here is I want to show you exactly what it is that we're seeing right now when it comes to them, because you'll see Virginia Beach up 5% in new listings. When you see Norfolk up 3% in new listings, over in Chesapeake, decline of 29% in new listings. And the reason why that's important to note is because if you don't see that number coming down 29%, with a problem that you will wind up having on your hands is that basically that's the high demand area. Clients all the time want to talk about moving to Chesapeake, talking to moving to Virginia Beach and certain school districts. And that's one of the main things we hear about anyone who has young kids who wants to move to certain communities. Where are the school districts at that are highly rated? And if you're looking at great schools or you're looking at niche.com, a lot of the times those schools are going to be rated in those areas higher than most. And to see that there's 29% decline in new listings in Chesapeake means to me what it signals is that right now, for us to be in PCS season, for schools to be out, and for anyone to still be seeing the inventory not increasing in those particular areas as much as dominant, means that people have realized that they need to stay locked into the areas that they have. So it's going to be a little bit more challenging for buyers to actually purchase in those areas. And that's what's going to be most important to understand. You need someone to talk to you about things like this, because we could always say, hey, it's always a great time to buy, but it's always going to be about particular areas of particular wants, particular needs that you need to have in life so you can make these purchases make sense for the individual consumer. And that's what I think is most important as we talk about this type of demand that we've seen. Like, we've seen sold listings go up 6% in Virginia Beach week over week, 11% week over week in Norfolk, 20% week over week in Chesapeake, and we've seen 4%, 3%. We only had one city have some type of decline in sold listings in their community, and that was in Hampton, Virginia, which it's not really that significant, big of a deal. 9% is only equates to about 5 homes less than they sold the week before. But in Newport News, when you see a 40% increase over week in sold listings, that just shows that people are still buying across the market. I mean, realistically, sold listings are up 4% week over week. That means that we still have buyer activity, strong buyer activity. We're not seeing it decline enough, but what we are seeing is that buyers look like they're being more selective in the places that they want to be and the homes that they want to have. So that makes a lot more things more interesting across the marketplace. And I still think it's a great time to buy, because I always want to tell people, if you're looking at the interest rates, okay, if you're looking at the interest rate, one of the things about interest rates that make people nervous is the payment. And that makes completely total sense. And I can't argue that. But also, interest rates increasing and home prices not decreasing, and they're going steadily up, makes it even more possible that you could be still finding a higher payment next year when interest rate decrease. And the reason why that could be is, if interest rate decrease next year, hypothetically, and the price either stays the same on median sales price, or the median sales price, or even the average sales price, because I like to use the average sales price. But if average sales price increases year over year next year, but your interest rate decreases, it still puts you in the same position that you was in now. So what people have to think about is, if they're waiting on the interest rate to decrease, which, either way, like I say, life events will change the perspective of a buyer, and life events will change the perspective of a seller. But let's say hypothetically, interest comes down, but home prices stay up, it's going to your mortgage payment is going to probably be about the same what it would have been this year if you would have just purchased, but you would start gaining more equity in your property versus having to deal with trying to get down to a level where you now have equity in your home. But let's just say, what would happen if interest rates come down and then home prices come down? That is the ultimate goal that someone who said that they're waiting for interest rates to come down needs to be taken into consideration. If home prices coming down with these interest rates, you're in a great spot. But what's the likelihood of both of those happening at the same time? That's what I really think people have to take into consideration. And that's what I kind of want to make sure this podcast addresses, because if we don't talk about it, we're going to always have people with, the hope and wish dream versus the ones who are actually thinking about this from a perspective of, okay, what is home prices really doing? What is really going on in my marketplace? And these are questions that you have to answer for yourself, because we can give you the data, we can talk to you about it, but if we don't sit down and have the consultations, which you can, pin, comment, be down below, it's in you can reach out to us any way you need to by using the stuff in the description as well too. But one of the main things here is understanding that transactions are happening. Which end or the transaction are you going to be on, and how is that expense going to look when it comes down to it? Okay, so but let's get back on track, because I think I went on a little dialogue there about new listings, and wanted to make sure I got that told to you and showed you the sold listings. But pending listings are still at 527 transactions. There's 527 transactions in queue to close soon, within the next 10 to 20, 30 days or so. So with that still happening, we're still seeing strong buyer activity. And in this marketplace with a heavy military presence, we're going to see military personnel leave, which is going to open up inventory in certain cases. And then we're going to see military personnel come in, and that's going to open up opportunity for more buying activity in our marketplace. So we have like this support system by the military being here that keeps on propping the market up even more. So this is why I have a hard time seeing in our marketplace the actual numbers shrink in price demand. Like the median price is still not going down, in my opinion. As a matter of fact, Redfin said actually that in their marketplaces that they evaluate, out of all the ones that they keep track of for home price median sales prices and median price sold prices in the metropolitan areas, the 50 most populous areas, the median home sale price was actually down 1% to 382,861. Sales price increased mostly in Fort Lauderdale, 8.6%, Miami, 8.5%, Providence, Rhode Island, 5.5%, Milwaukee, 5.2%, and in Virginia Beach, 5.1%. So that tells you that our marketplace is just not seeing those declines like most of these major metropolitan areas, which is important to know, because not only do you want to be a home buyer and getting into a home, but when you become a home owner, you want to know that your equity is still continuing to increase year over year. Yes, no matter what, if you keep on making the payment, your equity is going to eventually, surpass how much you owe. But at the same time, you still want to see that your home value is increasing year over year. and for Virginia Beach to still be showing a 5.1% increase across the board when some metropolitan areas are in a heavy decline. As a matter of fact, if we're talking about the declines, Austin, Texas, 11% year over year. Las Vegas, 9.1%. Detroit down 8%. Los Angeles down 7.1%. And Phoenix is down 6.8%. So if you take that into what this marketplace shows, this marketplace shows you that it still has opportunity available to you to actually see significant growth in equity in your properties. Okay, so let's get back to our multifamily listings. Okay, let's just talk about those for a second. Our multifamily listings, if you're looking at this chart here, shows that we actually have 46 multifamily transactions that happened last quarter, last period, or last week. But now we're down to 34 transactions and 9 new listings in multifamily properties. Okay, so when we talk about multifamily properties, we're talking about duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. Okay, and now if you didn't know, if you are a veteran or you someone who has eligibility for the VA home loan, the VA home loan can actually be used to purchase a multifamily property as well. Why is that so important to note? Well, for multifamily properties, a lot of people like to look at house hacking and they want to know how to house hack. But if you could actually, you have a built-in strategy. If you just buy a multifamily unit from on a VA loan, you buy the multifamily unit, you live in your portion, and then you rent out the other portion of the multifamily, and that can help offset your mortgage, or and actually bring in a residual income. But then at the end of it, if you stay there a year, 2 years, however long you want to stay there, and then you move out, but then you bring another tenant into that unit that you moved out of and keep a tenant in the same unit, now you just built yourself in an income property without you living in the property and living somewhere else as well too. Those are things that you want to consider, and these strategies are things that we see that's happening across the marketplace right here. I mean, honestly, we still had 7 sold multifamily properties in the last week, where that's down 30% from the previous week when we had 10, but still 7 multifamily properties coming off the market, individuals purchasing those are going to be eventually rental properties that's going to turn into residual income for the homeowner as long as they decide to hold on to it. Okay, so let's just talk about what are some of the highest sold listings. Some are our average prices around the marketplace. We'll talk about those things here. The highest sold listing this week is up to $2.6 million. Okay, the lowest sold listing this week was a $72.5 thousand, $72,500. Then we had a highest sold multi-unit family up to $295,000 this week, and the lowest sold multifamily unit was for $135,000. The average sold price currently from week to week is up 6% to $386,000 and $403. Okay, then the average list price that we see currently across the marketplace week to week is about $384,000, which is up about 7% week over week. The average price per square foot is down 1%, down to $198.58, which was $199.63 the previous week. And we've seen the average days on market increase by 5% from 22 days to 23 days in the marketplace. Now, one of the things to consider at all times, as I like to talk about, is that just understand that the marketplace is always fluid. Everything that we talk about is typically in the past. This is why we try to bring you weekly market updates about what's going on in Hampton Roads, because we can give you the monthly data, but it's important to also see what is really transpiring within a week's time frame, because that's kind of like a bigger scope of a post of what's going on in the market. And then the monthly updates are just things that keeps you knowing what's going on in the marketplace. But by the time you see that news is so old that we may be in a different market at that time, because the markets are always shifting. So this is one of the important things to always remember. I hope that you found value in this content, and if you have, definitely ring that ring that notification bell. I don't know why I said that. Let's do that again. So I hope that you found value in this content. If you have, definitely hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, please, and that helps us out to spread our message to more and more people. And ring that notification bell as well too, so that way that you can always be notified of the best updated information that we can possibly provide you across the board when it comes to Hampton Roads, the Norfolk area, and anything moving in Norfolk. Okay, so I'm your host, Craig Houston, with the Moving in Norfolk team. Definitely, you can reach out to us by email, phone call, text, or even booking a video call. This was our favorite thing to do, and we always look forward to helping you make a smooth move to Norfolk, or even helping you with anything real estate related in Norfolk, Virginia. Catch you in the next video. Y'all stay safe. Peace.